Ambassador Zixtal stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The blue and green planet rotated slowly, showing white clouds swirling over vast oceans and brown landmasses. Sol 3 looked peaceful from space, but the readings told a different story. The planet buzzed with electromagnetic activity. Radio waves poured out into space like water from a broken dam. Satellite networks circled the world in perfect grids. Space stations hung in orbit, clearly built by intelligent hands. Ships moved between the planet and its single large moon, carrying cargo and passengers. Yet for 237 years, the inhabitants had ignored every single message the Galactic Council sent them. Zixtal's blue skin darkened with frustration. His people, the Vorthak, had been trying to contact the humans longer than most species had been members of the Council. The first diplomatic transmission had been sent when the humans still used primitive rockets to reach their moon. Now they had fusion drives and were building colonies on the fourth planet in their system. Still no response. Ambassador? His assistant, Kriva, entered the office carrying a data pad. Her purple skin showed the nervous color patterns that meant bad news. The council meeting is starting soon. They want your report on the Sol 3 situation. Zixtal sighed, a sound like air escaping from a balloon. What is there to report? They continue to ignore us. Their technology grows more advanced each year, but they act like we don't exist. Maybe they can't hear us, Kriva suggested. Some species develop different communication methods. We've tried everything. Zixtal pulled up the transmission logs. The list scrolled down for several minutes. Radio waves, laser communications, quantum entanglement signals, even basic mathematical sequences. We've sent messages in their own languages after we learned them. Nothing works. The datapad in Kriva's hands chimed softly. The Hegemony Fleet Commander wants to know if the humans are hostile. Admiral Kethvar says any species that refuses all contact might be planning an attack. Zixtal's skin turned even darker. The Hegemony controlled the largest military force in the galaxy. If they decided the humans were a threat, things would get very bad very quickly. The humans fight each other constantly, Zixtal said, but they've never attacked anyone outside their system. They don't even know we exist. That's what worries the Admiral. A species that builds weapons but won't talk might be getting ready for war. Zixtal stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the council station. Hundreds of ships floated in space around the massive structure. Each one represented a different species, a different world that had joined the galactic community. Some had joined peacefully after first contact. Others had needed years of careful diplomacy. A few had even been hostile at first but learned to cooperate. None had ever ignored the council completely. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Dr. Sarah Chen worked late in her laboratory at the SETI Institute on Earth. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence had been looking for alien signals for over a century. They had powerful radio telescopes, quantum computers, and analysis programs that could detect patterns in the tiniest bits of data. They had also found nothing but silence. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the coffee cup that had been empty for hours. Outside her window, the sun was setting over the mountains. Most of her colleagues had gone home hours ago, but something kept bothering her about the data from yesterday's observations. The radio telescopes had detected what the computer called background interference. This happened sometimes when Earth's own satellites or electronic devices created noise that looked like signals from space. The computer automatically filtered it out to keep the real data clean. But this interference was different. It came from the same direction every time, far outside the solar system. It had mathematical patterns that didn't match any known natural phenomena, and it had been appearing in the data for decades. Sarah pulled up the filtered signals on her computer screen. The wave patterns looked almost like language, with repeating structures and clear organization. She ran them through the translation programs they used for ancient human languages. The computer worked for several minutes, then displayed a message that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. Translation confidence, 73%. Estimated meaning, formal diplomatic greeting, species identification request. Sarah stared at the screen. Her hands started shaking as she realized what she was looking at. These weren't random radio waves from space. They were messages. Someone was trying to talk to Earth. She quickly pulled up more of the filtered data, going back years. The computer found thousands of similar transmissions, all from the same general direction in space. As she fed them into the translation program, a terrifying picture began to form. First contact. Diplomatic invitations. Requests for cultural exchange. Trade agreements. Technology sharing offers. Warnings about conflicts in nearby star systems. And finally, the most recent messages. Formal complaints about Earth's failure to respond. Threats of economic sanctions and demands that humanity appear before something called the Galactic Council. Earth hadn't been alone in the universe. Earth had been ignoring its neighbors for over 2 centuries. Sarah's phone rang, making her jump. It was her supervisor, Dr. Martinez. "Sarah, I know it's late, but the director wants to see you first thing tomorrow. Something about classified data showing up in our systems." Classified data? The military has been filtering our observations for years. Apparently there are signals they don't want us to see. The director is not happy. Sarah looked at her computer screen where alien messages continued to scroll past. "Dr. Martinez, I think I know what those signals are." "What do you mean?" "I mean we need to call the president. Tonight." The next morning, General Marcus Torres sat in a secure conference room deep beneath the Pentagon. Around the table sat representatives from every major space agency, intelligence service, and military branch on Earth. The mood was grim. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," General Torres said, looking at the files spread in front of him. "For the past 200 years, we've been receiving diplomatic messages from alien civilizations. Our security systems automatically classified them as potential enemy communications and hid them from civilian scientists." Colonel Williams, head of the military's Space Monitoring Division, nodded. "The signals didn't match any known natural phenomena. They showed clear signs of intelligence and organization. Our protocols required us to treat them as potential threats until we could determine their source." "And now we know their source," Dr. Chen said quietly. "They're from something called the Galactic Council, an organization of hundreds of alien species that has been trying to invite Earth to join them." General Torres rubbed his forehead. "How many messages are we talking about?" "Over 50,000, Colonel Williams replied. "The latest ones are getting increasingly angry. Apparently we've missed quite a few important meetings." The director of the CIA leaned forward. "What kind of meetings?" Dr. Chen consulted her notes. "Diplomatic sessions, trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, something called the Outer Rim Security Conference that happens every 5 years. Oh, and about 30 emergency sessions regarding various galactic conflicts." "Conflicts, General?" Torres asked. "Wars, General, big ones. Between species with faster-than-light travel and weapons we can barely imagine. And Earth was supposed to be contributing to peacekeeping forces." The room fell silent. General Torres looked around the table at faces that showed a mixture of fear and amazement. What happens if we keep ignoring them? Dr. Chen pulled up the most recent translation on her tablet. "According to the latest message, the Council is considering economic sanctions. They want to cut Earth off from something called interstellar trade routes. If we don't respond within 72 hours, they're going to declare us a hostile, isolationist state." "What does that mean?" "I don't know, but it doesn't sound good." General Torres stood up and walked to the wall display that showed a map of nearby star systems. Red dots marked the locations where the alien messages had originated. There were dozens of them, forming a rough sphere around Earth's solar system. "How long until the next deadline?" Dr. Chen checked her computer. 36 hours, sir." "And how long to prepare a response?" "To send a message, we could do that in a few hours. But General, these aren't primitive aliens. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If they decide we're hostile..." General Torres turned back to the table. "Colonel Williams, I want you to activate every space-based defense system we have, quietly. Dr. Chen, I need you to prepare a response message explaining our situation." Everyone else, start thinking about how we explain to the world that we've been accidentally ignoring our cosmic neighbors for 2 centuries. As the meeting broke up, General Torres remained staring at the star map. Earth had always assumed it was alone in the universe. Now they had discovered they were part of a vast galactic community that they had been rudely ignoring for generations. The next 36 hours would determine whether humanity joined that community as friends or faced it as enemies. Far above Earth's atmosphere, automated systems began powering up weapons platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites for decades. In secret facilities around the world, engineers started reviewing plans for spacecraft that had never been built, designed for wars that Earth had hoped would never come. Humanity was about to discover that missing meetings with cosmic neighbors had consequences that went far beyond hurt feelings. The galaxy had been patient with Earth's silence, but patience, even on a cosmic scale, had limits, and those limits were about to be tested. General Marcus Torres had not slept in 30 hours. The coffee in his mug had gone cold again, but he barely noticed. Spread across his desk were translated alien messages that read like a nightmare version of his grandmother's social calendar. Invitation to the 847th Galactic Council session. Your attendance is requested for discussions of trade route security and mineral rights allocation. Reminder: Earth representative required for Outer Rim Defense Planning Committee. Failure to attend may result in reduced protection status. Final notice: Earth's continued absence from council sessions is being interpreted as hostile behavior by several member species. Each message was politely worded, but carried the weight of cosmic politics that Earth had been completely unaware of. Worse, the most recent transmission had arrived just 2 hours ago, and it was not polite at all. Dr. Chen knocked on his office door and entered without waiting for permission. Her face was pale, and she carried a tablet that seemed to shake in her hands. "General, we just received another message. It's different." Torres took the tablet and read the translation. The formal diplomatic language was gone, replaced by something that sounded like a final warning. To the human species of Sol 3. Your persistent failure to acknowledge Galactic Council communications has been noted by the Security Committee. Several member species now consider your silence to be preparation for aggressive action. You have 36 standard galactic hours to establish formal communication and provide explanation for your non-participation. Failure to respond will result in economic isolation and potential defensive action by council members. This is your final notice. Torres set the tablet down carefully. How long is a standard galactic hour? We think it's about 53 minutes Earth time, so we have roughly 31 hours left. And what exactly does economic isolation mean? Dr. Chen pulled up another screen on her tablet. Based on the earlier messages, there are interstellar trade routes that pass through or near our solar system. The Council controls access to them. If they cut us off, any future space expansion we try will be blocked. And defensive action? We're not sure, but several of the messages mention enforcement fleets and containment protocols. Torres stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the city looked normal. People went to work, children played in parks, and everyone assumed that Earth was the center of a quiet, empty universe. In a few hours, he would have to help the president explain to the world that they had been wrong about almost everything. His phone buzzed. It was Admiral Rachel Santos, commander of the Space Defense Initiative. "General, we have a problem. The satellites are picking up new activity in the outer solar system." "What kind of activity?" "Unknown contacts, big ones. They're not moving toward Earth, but they're definitely not natural objects. My analysts think they might be ships." Torres felt his stomach drop. How many ships? Hard to tell from this distance, but at least a dozen, maybe more. "Admiral, I need you to activate every defensive system we have, quietly, and I need you to prepare for the possibility that we might be facing a first contact situation that doesn't go well." "Sir, our space defense systems are designed to handle missiles and satellites. If these are actual alien warships, and I know, do what you can." Torres ended the call and looked at Dr. Chen. "How long to prepare a response message?" "I've already started working on it, but General, I don't know what to say." How do you apologize for ignoring someone for 2 centuries? Very carefully, Torres replied, and very convincingly. 3 hours later, President Maria Rodriguez sat in the Oval Office listening to a briefing that made every science fiction movie she had ever seen seem realistic by comparison. Around her sat the heads of NASA, the CIA, the Pentagon, and the world's leading experts on extraterrestrial communication. Let me see if I understand this, the president said slowly. We've been receiving messages from aliens for over 200 years. Our military automatically hid these messages because they thought they were enemy communications. These aliens represent hundreds of different species organized into something like the United Nations in space. We were supposed to join this organization decades ago. We've missed hundreds of important meetings, and now they think we're planning to attack them. That's correct, Madam President, General Torres confirmed. And we have how long to fix this? 27 hours and 16 minutes, Dr. Chen replied, checking her computer. The president stood up and began pacing. What are our options? We send an explanation and hope they believe us, Torres said. Or we prepare for the possibility that they don't. What happens if they don't believe us? Admiral Santos leaned forward. Madam President, based on the technology implied by their messages, if the Galactic Council decides we're hostile, our chances of defending Earth are essentially 0. The room fell silent. The president stopped pacing and looked out the window at the Washington Monument. How many people know about this? About 30, the CIA director replied. All with top-secret clearance. That won't last long. Get me, the Secretary of Defense, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader. We need to brief Congress immediately, and somebody needs to start writing a speech explaining to the American people that we're not alone in the universe. Madam President, Dr. Chen interrupted. There's something else. The aliens aren't just talking to the United States. They've been trying to contact all of Earth. Every major government has been filtering out the same signals. You mean China, Russia, the European Union, India, Japan. Everyone has been ignoring the same alien messages for decades. The president sat back down. Get me the emergency hotline to every world leader, now. While the president made calls that would reshape human history, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something was happening that would change everything. The Prometheus manufacturing facility had been humanity's most closely guarded secret for 15 years. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the underwater complex, checking systems that had been dormant for years. The facility had been built to manufacture spacecraft for the Mars colonization project, but funding had been cut when political priorities changed. The automated factories had been sitting empty, waiting for someone to need them again. That someone had just called. Dr. Vasquez? Her assistant, James Park, appeared beside her carrying a tablet. We just received authorization codes from the Pentagon. They want us to activate the production lines. For the Mars project? No, ma'am. Military vessels. They're sending us specifications for something called Rapid Deployment Defense Platforms. Elena took the tablet and looked at the ship designs. They were unlike anything in the Mars project files. These ships were built for fighting, with armor plating, weapon mounts, and engines designed for combat maneuvers. How many ships do they want? The initial order is for 500 units, with options for additional production runs. Elena stared at the number. The entire Mars project had planned to build 12 ships over 10 years. Now the Pentagon wanted 500 combat vessels, and they wanted them fast. James, how long would it take to retool the production lines for these designs? With the automated systems? Maybe 6 hours. The fabrication units can handle most of the components. We'd need to install the weapon systems manually, but the basic hull and engines could be mass-produced. And how long to build 500 ships? James ran calculations on his tablet. If we run all production lines at maximum capacity, maybe 72 hours for the basic hulls, another day or two for final assembly. Elena looked around. The vast facility. Robotic assembly lines stretched into the distance, all waiting for instructions. The place had been designed to build spacecraft like an automobile factory built cars, fast, efficient, and in large numbers. James, send confirmation to the Pentagon. Tell them we can have the first batch ready in 4 days. Yes, ma'am. Should I ask what we're preparing for? Elena looked at the weapon specifications on the tablet. Each ship was designed to carry enough firepower to destroy a small city. I don't think I want to know. Above the Pacific, in orbit around Earth, things were happening that would have amazed anyone watching. Satellites that had appeared to be communication relays were unfolding into configurations that revealed hidden weapon systems. Space stations that the public thought were research facilities were powering up defensive shields and targeting systems. Colonel Williams monitored the activation sequence from his command center in Colorado. For decades, the military had been secretly preparing for the possibility of space-based conflict. They had assumed the enemy would be other humans, Russians, Chinese, or terrorists who managed to get weapons into orbit. They had never imagined they might be facing aliens. Colonel, his communications officer called out, "We're receiving a response from the Alien Council." Williams felt his heart rate increase. Put it on screen. The translated message appeared on the main display. Acknowledgement received of human desire to communicate. Council will convene emergency session to address Sol 3 situation. Human representative must appear at Council Station within 72 standard hours to explain prolonged silence and demonstrate peaceful intentions. Failure to appear will be considered confirmation of hostile status. Williams read the message twice. Where is this Council Station? According to the signal source, it's orbiting Proxima Centauri, about 4 light-years away. And how long would it take us to get there? Sir, our fastest spacecraft would take about 40,000 years. Williams stared at the screen. The aliens wanted a human representative to travel to another star system in 3 days. It was impossible, unless the aliens came to get them. His radar officer suddenly spoke up. Colonel, we're detecting new contacts entering the solar system. Multiple large objects moving at incredible speed. Williams felt the blood drain from his face. Are they headed for Earth? Unknown, sir. But they're definitely artificial, and they're bigger than anything we've ever seen. Williams reached for his phone to call the Pentagon. Earth had 36 hours to explain 2 centuries of silence, but it was starting to look like the aliens weren't going to wait for an explanation. They were coming to get one in person. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her life's work transform into something she never imagined it could become. The Prometheus manufacturing facility hummed with activity as robotic assembly lines that had been designed to build peaceful colony ships now churned out military vessels at a pace that defied every assumption about spacecraft construction. Production line Alpha is completing hull number 47, James Park reported, his voice showing the exhaustion of someone who had been working for 36 straight hours. Line Beta just finished installing weapon systems on hull 23. Line Gamma is starting final assembly on hull 15. Elena looked at the massive factory floor through the observation window. Each production line stretched for nearly a kilometer, with robotic arms and automated systems working with precision that would have impressed the makers of Earth's finest automobiles. But instead of cars, they were building warships. How are we doing compared to the timeline? Ahead of schedule, actually. The modular design is working better than expected. Once the robots figured out the assembly pattern, they started optimizing the process on their own. Elena nodded, but she felt a growing sense of unease. The ships being built below were unlike anything in human space travel history. They were designed for one purpose: fighting. Each vessel carried enough weapons to destroy a space station, armor thick enough to survive missile strikes, and engines powerful enough to chase down anything that tried to run away. But what worried her most was how easy it had been to build them. The Pentagon had sent plans for these warships as if they had been sitting in a filing cabinet for years. The weapon systems were based on technology that Elena had never seen before, but the manufacturing specifications were detailed and precise. Someone had been planning for this moment for a very long time. Dr. Vasquez, James called out, "We're getting a priority message from the lunar facility." Elena took the communication tablet and read the encrypted message. Her face went pale. "What is it?" James asked. "Luna base is powering up. They're activating something called Project Aegis. Thought Luna Base was a research station. Elena looked at the message again. Apparently not. 380,000 kilometers away on the surface of Earth's moon, Colonel Sarah Mitchell stood in a control room that officially did not exist. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at stations that monitored systems the public had never heard of. Aegis Platform 1 is online, reported Lieutenant Commander Park. All weapon systems are operational. Aegis Platform 2 shows green across the board, added another technician. Targeting computers are locked onto the incoming contacts. Colonel Mitchell looked at the tactical display that showed the solar system from above. Red dots marked the locations of alien vessels that had been detected entering from interstellar space. Blue dots showed the positions of Earth's defensive systems, many of which were revealing themselves for the first time. How many platforms do we have operational? 12 major installations, ma'am, plus the orbital defense grid around Earth. Mitchell studied the numbers. For years, she had commanded what the public thought was a small research base on the moon. In reality, Luna Base was the command center for humanity's most powerful defensive system. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to 10% of light speed, laser arrays that could cut through asteroid-sized targets, missile systems with warheads that used technology borrowed from failed fusion reactor experiments, all of it hidden beneath the surface of the moon, disguised as equipment for mining operations and scientific research. Colonel, her communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. It's on standard diplomatic frequencies." "Put it through." The translated message appeared on the main screen. "This is Diplomatic Escort Fleet 7 of the Galactic Council. We are approaching Sol 3 to retrieve human representative for emergency council session. We mean no harm and request permission to enter inner solar system." Mitchell read the message twice. The aliens wanted to pick up someone from Earth and take them to their council meeting. It sounded reasonable except for one problem. "How big is this escort fleet?" "Sensors show 12 large vessels, ma'am. Each one is roughly the size of a naval aircraft carrier, and they want to come to Earth." "Yes, ma'am." Mitchell looked at her defensive systems display. Earth's space-based weapons were powerful, but they had been designed to fight human opponents with human technology. These alien ships had traveled between stars, which meant they had capabilities that Earth could barely imagine. "Ma'am," the communications officer said, "we're getting reports from the asteroid belt. Mining Station 7 is requesting clarification on something called Operation Sledgehammer." Mitchell felt her stomach tighten. Operation Sledgehammer was one of the most classified military projects in human history. The fact that a civilian mining station was asking about it meant that someone very high up the chain of command had activated protocols that were supposed to be used only in the most extreme circumstances. "Lieutenant, get me a secure line to General Torres." While Colonel Mitchell tried to reach Earth, Chief Engineer Marcus Webb stood in the command center of Mining Station 7, trying to understand orders that seemed to come from a science fiction movie. "Read the directive again," he told his assistant Linda Zhao. "Activate Project Sledgehammer immediately. All mining operations are to be converted to military production. Fabricate kinetic projectiles according to specifications attached. Target: incoming alien vessels. Authorization: Solar Defense Command." Webb looked around his control room. Mining Station 7 was positioned in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, where it extracted metals and minerals from floating rocks that were sometimes larger than mountains. The station's mass drivers, electromagnetic cannons designed to launch cargo containers back toward Earth, were among the most powerful devices humans had ever built. They were also, he was now realizing, weapons of incredible destructive potential. "Linda, how fast can our mass drivers accelerate a projectile?" "Depends on the size. A cargo container may be 2 kilometers per second. Something smaller could go much faster." Webb pulled up the specifications that had been attached to the military directive. The diagrams showed projectiles that looked like telephone poles made from dense metals and designed to be accelerated to extremely high speeds. "According to this, we're supposed to launch these at 15 kilometers per second. That's really fast, Marcus. What happens when something moving that fast hits a target?" Webb ran the calculations on his computer. A metal rod weighing 1 ton, moving at 15 kilometers per second, would hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. And Mining Station 7 had the capability to launch hundreds of such projectiles. Linda, how many mining stations are there in the asteroid belt? 47 major facilities, maybe 100 smaller ones. Webb stared at the tactical display that showed the positions of all the mining operations. Spread throughout the asteroid belt, they formed a defensive line that could launch projectiles at any target approaching Earth from the outer solar system. We're not mining stations, Webb said quietly. We're artillery platforms. What do you mean? Think about it. Electromagnetic launchers capable of accelerating massive projectiles to incredible speeds, positioned throughout the asteroid belt where they have unlimited ammunition. All of them supposedly built for commercial mining operations. Linda looked at the military directive again. You think this was planned? I think somebody has been preparing for a space war for a very long time. Back on Earth, President Rodriguez stood in the Situation Room surrounded by military advisors, scientists, and intelligence analysts who were trying to make sense of a situation that changed every hour. Madam President, General Torres reported, we have confirmation that 12 alien vessels are approaching Earth. They claim to be a diplomatic escort, but each ship is larger than our biggest aircraft carrier. What are our defensive capabilities? Admiral Santos pulled up a holographic display that showed the solar system. Blue markers indicated human military assets, many of which the President was seeing for the first time. We have orbital platforms around Earth, weapon systems on the Moon, and kinetic launchers throughout the asteroid belt. Our space-based manufacturing facility is producing combat vessels at a rate of about 50 per day. The President stared at the display. 50 ships per day? How is that possible? The Prometheus facility was designed for rapid spacecraft production. We just never had a reason to use it at full capacity before. And all of these defensive systems, how long have they existed? Some for decades, ma'am. The classified space defense program has been building capabilities since the 1980s. The President sat down heavily. Are you telling me that we've been preparing for space warfare for 40 years? Yes, ma'am. The program was originally designed to counter potential threats from other Earth nations that might try to militarize space. We never expected to face actual aliens. Dr. Chen spoke up from her position at the communications console. Madam President, we need to make a decision. The alien escort fleet is requesting permission to approach Earth. They want to pick up a human representative for their council meeting. And if we say no, based on their recent messages, they'll consider that proof that we're hostile. And if we say yes, we let 12 alien warships enter our solar system. The President looked around the room. Every face showed the same expression of uncertainty and fear. What does our intelligence tell us about their intentions? The CIA director consulted his notes. Based on the translated messages, they appear to be genuinely interested in diplomacy, but they're also frustrated by our long silence and suspicious of our motives. And our military assessment? General Torres looked grim. If they wanted to attack us, they probably would have done it already. These ships traveled from another star system, which means their technology is far beyond ours. If they're hostile, our defensive systems might slow them down but probably couldn't stop them. The President stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Washington. Somewhere above, alien ships were approaching Earth with intentions that remained unclear. How long until they reach Earth? About 6 hours, ma'am. And how many of our own ships will be ready by then? Admiral Santos checked her tablet. The Prometheus facility should have completed about 300 vessels by the time the alien fleet arrives. The President turned back to the room. 300 human warships against 12 alien vessels. Under normal circumstances, those would be excellent odds. But these were not normal circumstances. General Torres, I want all defensive systems on high alert but not actively targeting the alien ships unless they show hostile intent. Dr. Chen, send a message accepting their request to approach Earth, but tell them they'll be escorted by our own vessels. Ma'am, Admiral Santos said, are you sure we want to reveal our military capabilities to them? The President looked at the holographic display showing Earth's hidden weapons scattered throughout the solar system. Admiral, I think they're about to find out about our capabilities whether we want them to or not. The question is whether they find out because we're working together or because we're shooting at each other. In 6 hours, humanity would face its first official contact with alien intelligence. The meeting would take place in Earth's orbit, surrounded by more military hardware than had ever been assembled in the history of human spaceflight. The galaxy was about to discover that the species that had missed every meeting had spent their time preparing for war. Admiral Rachel Santos stood on the bridge of the ESS Prometheus, humanity's first purpose-built command vessel, watching as 12 alien ships approached Earth orbit. Through the viewport, she could see the massive alien vessels emerging from the darkness of space like floating cities made of metal and light. Each alien ship was indeed the size of an aircraft carrier, but they moved with an elegance that no human vessel had ever achieved. Their hulls curved in smooth lines that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Soft blue lights traced patterns across their surfaces, and they maintained perfect formation despite traveling at speeds that would have torn apart any human-built spacecraft. Admiral, reported Commander Hayes from the tactical station. The alien fleet is maintaining course for high Earth orbit. They're not showing any aggressive behavior, but our sensors can't penetrate their hulls to determine their weapon systems. Santos nodded, trying to keep her expression calm despite the fact that her heart was beating fast enough to power a small generator. Around the alien fleet, 300 human warships took up escort positions in what looked like a formal honor guard but was actually a carefully planned defensive formation. Any word from the surface? President Rodriguez is en route to the orbital platform. Dr. Chen will serve as primary translator. General Torres is coordinating ground-based defenses in case this goes badly. Santos looked at the tactical display that showed the positions of all vessels in Earth orbit. The human ships looked tiny compared to the alien vessels, but there were 25 times as many of them. More importantly, they had been built using manufacturing techniques that the galaxy had apparently never seen. Commander, open a channel to the alien fleet. Channel open, Admiral. Santos took a deep breath. She was about to speak the first official words between humanity and the galactic community. Alien vessels. This is Admiral Santos of the Earth Space Defense Force. Welcome to our solar system. We appreciate your patience with our communication difficulties and look forward to resolving the misunderstanding between our species. The response came quickly, translated by Dr. Chen's team, and displayed on the bridge screen. Greetings, Admiral Santos. This is Diplomatic Commander Vexai of the Galactic Council Escort Fleet. We acknowledge your welcome and request permission to transfer human representative to our vessel for transport to Council Station. Santos felt a moment of confusion. Transfer? I thought we were going to conduct meetings here in Earth orbit. The alien response took longer this time. Council emergency session requires physical presence at Council Station. Human representative must travel to Proxima Centauri system. This is standard diplomatic protocol. Admiral, Commander Hayes whispered, our fastest ship would take 40,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. Santos realized the aliens expected her to travel to another star system for a meeting. They obviously had faster-than-light travel capabilities that humanity couldn't match. Commander Vexai, we appreciate the invitation, but humans don't currently have the technology to travel to other star systems. Could the council meeting be conducted here instead? The alien response seemed confused. Human vessels surround our fleet. Your manufacturing capabilities are evident. How do you lack interstellar travel? Admiral Santos looked at her tactical display again. From the aliens' perspective, humanity had produced 300 warships in just a few days and positioned them with military precision throughout the solar system. To them, it probably looked like Earth possessed incredibly advanced technology. Commander Vexai, perhaps we could arrange for one of your vessels to remain here while we discuss the situation. We seem to have some significant technological differences that need clarification. While Admiral Santos negotiated in orbit, deep beneath the surface of the moon, Colonel Mitchell monitored a conversation that was making several alien species very nervous. Colonel, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, we're intercepting communications between the alien ships. Our translation software is picking up fragments. What are they saying? They seem confused about our capabilities. One ship is reporting that human vessels lack artistic individuality, but demonstrate concerning uniformity. Another is asking about our mass production techniques. Colonel Mitchell looked at the displays showing human ship formations. Every vessel in Earth's fleet was identical to its neighbors. They had been built from the same plans using the same materials by the same automated systems. To human military thinking, this was efficient and practical. To aliens who apparently built ships like works of art, it was apparently terrifying. Are they discussing our weapons? Yes, ma'am. They're trying to analyze our ships but can't understand how we built so many so quickly. One commander is reporting that our manufacturing rate violates known limitations of shipyard efficiency. Colonel Mitchell realized that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't superior technology. It was superior manufacturing. The aliens built ships the way humans built cathedrals, slowly, carefully, with each one being unique. Humans built ships the way they built cars, fast, cheap, and in massive quantities. Lieutenant, are our defensive systems still tracking the alien fleet? Yes, ma'am. All railgun platforms have firing solutions, but we're maintaining passive lock status as ordered. And the asteroid belt platforms? All mining stations report ready to engage if necessary. They're tracking the alien ships with kinetic launchers. Mitchell looked at the tactical overview. If shooting started, Earth could put approximately 10,000 projectiles into space within the first minute of combat. The aliens had 12 ships no matter how advanced they were, but she hoped it wouldn't come to that. In the Prometheus facility beneath the Pacific, Dr. Vasquez watched her. Automated production lines continue building warships even as diplomacy proceeded overhead. The facility had exceeded all expectations, completing 400 vessels with another 100 scheduled for completion within hours. Dr. Vasquez, James Park reported, we're getting queries from the Pentagon. They want to know our maximum production capacity. For these ship designs? Yes, ma'am. They're asking how many we could build if we switched all production lines to military vessels and maintained operation for a full year. Elena ran the calculations. With the current automation level, maybe 50,000 ships. If we built additional production facilities, the number could be much higher. James stared at his tablet. 50,000 ships in a year? The facility was designed for massive colony ship production. We expected to build the infrastructure for Mars colonization, which would have required thousands of vessels. Military ships are actually simpler to manufacture than colony ships. Elena looked at the production floor where robots continued their precise work. Each ship took about 18 hours from start to finish, but with multiple production lines operating simultaneously, they were completing vessels every 30 minutes. James, send a report to the Pentagon. Tell them we can maintain current production rates indefinitely as long as we have raw materials. And raw materials? The asteroid mining stations can provide enough metal to build ships for centuries. Elena walked to the observation window and watched another warship roll off the assembly line. The vessel was ugly compared to the elegant alien ships in orbit above, but it was functional, reliable, and most importantly, it existed. In the time it would take the aliens to carefully craft one beautiful ship, humanity could build 100 practical ones. Above, on the orbital platform where first contact was officially taking place, President Rodriguez faced Commander Vexhai in what was possibly the most important meeting in human history. The alien commander was humanoid, but clearly not human. His skin had a bluish tint, his eyes were larger than human eyes, and his hands had 6 fingers instead of 5. He wore what appeared to be ceremonial robes decorated with symbols that probably indicated his rank and position. President Rodriguez, Commander Vexhai said through the translation device, the Council is very confused by your species' behavior. You ignored our communications for 2 centuries, yet you possess military capabilities that suggest advanced technological development. President Rodriguez chose her words carefully. Commander Vexhai, we sincerely apologize for the communication breakdown. Our military systems automatically classified your messages as potential security threats and prevented our civilian scientists from seeing them. We didn't know you existed until yesterday. The alien commander's large eyes showed an expression that might have been surprise. Your military systems have been intercepting diplomatic communications for 2 centuries? Yes, sir. Our planet has experienced many conflicts between different human nations. We developed defensive systems to protect against attacks from other humans. We never imagined we might receive communications from other species. Commander Vexhai was quiet for several moments. Your defensive systems, they were designed to fight other humans? Yes, sir. And these warships surrounding our fleet? They were built in the past few days after we realized the situation. We wanted to make sure our first meeting went smoothly. Commander Vexhai looked around the orbital platform at the human representatives and their equipment. You built 300 warships in 3 days? Actually, we're up to 400 now. Our manufacturing facility is still running. The alien commander became very still. Through the viewport, both leaders could see the human fleet maintaining its escort formation around the alien vessels. From space, the human ships looked like a swarm of mechanical insects, surrounding a small group of artistic masterpieces. President Rodriguez, may I ask how many warships your species could build if you had more time? The president looked at her advisors, who provided quick calculations. Our current facility could produce about 50,000 ships per year. If we built additional facilities, the number would be much higher. Commander Vexhai's skin color changed to a deeper blue, which Dr. Chen's cultural briefing had indicated might be a sign of shock or concern. President Rodriguez, in the entire Galactic Council, no single species maintains a fleet of more than 10,000 vessels. Most species consider a fleet of 1,000 ships to be impressively large. The president realized she might have said something wrong. Commander, we hope you don't see this as a threat. We built these ships because we were worried about the first contact situation. We didn't know what to expect. I understand your concern, but I must ask, how do you build ships so quickly? Council shipyards require years to complete a single vessel. Admiral Santos, who had joined the meeting, answered the question. We use automated manufacturing systems. Robots build the ships according to standardized designs. It's much faster than handcrafting each vessel individually. Commander Vexhai looked genuinely confused. Your ships are all identical? Yes, sir. It's more efficient that way. But how do you distinguish between them? How do pilots develop emotional connections to their vessels? How do you honor the artisans who create them? Admiral Santos and President Rodriguez exchanged glances. The aliens apparently viewed shipbuilding as an art form, while humans viewed it as industrial production. Commander, the president said, carefully, I think our species have very different approaches to technology and manufacturing. Perhaps that's something we should discuss at the council meeting. Commander Vexhai nodded slowly. Yes, I believe the council will be very interested in human manufacturing techniques. Some species will be fascinated. Others may be concerned. Concerned? President Rodriguez, your species has created more military vessels in 3 days than most council members build in a decade. And you did this because you were worried about a diplomatic meeting. The president began to understand the problem. To the aliens, humanity's response to first contact looked like preparation for war on a scale that the galaxy had never seen. Commander, I assure you that we have no hostile intentions toward the Galactic Council. I believe you, President Rodriguez, but you must understand, your capabilities are unlike anything in Council records. A species that can mass-produce warships will change the military balance of the entire galaxy. Through the viewport, the two leaders could see human and alien ships maintaining their careful formations in Earth orbit. What had started as a diplomatic escort was beginning to look like the prelude to something much larger. Commander Vexhai spoke quietly. President Rodriguez, I think the council meeting is going to be very interesting. The Galactic Council station orbited Proxima Centauri like a metal moon, its massive structure housing representatives from over 400 different species. In the 2 weeks since first contact with humanity, the station had become the center of the most intense political debate in galactic history. Ambassador Zixtal stood before the assembled council, his blue skin showing the deep purple patterns that indicated serious concern. Around the circular chamber, hundreds of alien representatives watched as he delivered what might be the most important speech of his career. Fellow council members, Zixtal began, we face a situation unprecedented in galactic history. The human species has not only joined our community, but has fundamentally challenged every assumption we hold about military production and space warfare. On the holographic display behind him, images showed the human fleet that now numbered over 8,000 vessels. In just 2 weeks, Earth's manufacturing facilities had continued producing warships at a rate that left even the most advanced council species struggling to understand how it was possible. The humans did not set out to threaten anyone, Zixtal continued. They built this fleet because they were afraid of us. But in doing so, they have demonstrated capabilities that will change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. In the human section of the chamber, President Rodriguez sat beside Admiral Santos and Dr. Chen. They had traveled to the council station aboard a human vessel that had been hastily modified with alien faster-than-light technology, a compromise that allowed humanity to attend the emergency session. The question before us, announced High Counselor Thexara, the ancient leader whose species had founded the council centuries ago, is whether humanity's military capabilities represent a threat to galactic peace or an opportunity for enhanced security. Admiral Kethavar of the Hegemony stood to address the chamber. His warrior species had controlled the largest fleet in the galaxy for generations, and his concern was obvious in his aggressive posture. High Counselor, the humans have built more warships in 2 weeks than my people have constructed in the past century. Their manufacturing methods are completely alien to our understanding of proper shipbuilding. How can we trust a species that treats warships like consumer products? President Rodriguez requested permission to respond. Admiral Kethavar, with respect, our manufacturing methods reflect our history. Humanity has faced many conflicts throughout our development. We learned to produce equipment quickly because our survival often depended on having enough tools and weapons to defend ourselves. But why so many ships? Asked Counselor Vrixtal of the Merchant Guild. Your planet has never been attacked by outside forces. Dr. Chen stood to answer. Counselor Vrixtal, until 2 weeks ago, we didn't know outside forces existed. When we discovered that we had accidentally ignored diplomatic contact for 2 centuries, we were terrified. We thought we might be facing invasion by an advanced alien civilization. So you built 8,000 warships? Admiral Kethavar's tone was incredulous. Actually, Admiral Santos replied, we've built 12,000 ships as of yesterday. Our production facilities are still operating. The chamber fell silent. Even species that had been sympathetic to humanity's situation looked shocked by the numbers. High Counselor Thexara leaned forward. Admiral Santos, why are you continuing to build military vessels if you're no longer concerned about invasion? Admiral Santos looked at President Rodriguez, who nodded. High Counselor, we're continuing production because we've learned about the security challenges facing the galaxy. The Council records show multiple ongoing conflicts with hostile species, piracy problems along trade routes, and territorial disputes that sometimes lead to warfare. We want to contribute to galactic security. Contribute how? Asked Ambassador Zixtal. President Rodriguez stood. We propose to establish human manufacturing facilities throughout Council space. Any member species that needs additional defensive capabilities can contract with human shipyards to supplement their fleets. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species saw the opportunity to enhance their military strength. Others worried about the implications of mass-produced warships becoming available to anyone with enough resources to pay for them. Commander Vexhai, who had become humanity's primary liaison with the Council, requested permission to speak. I have spent 2 weeks observing human manufacturing techniques. Their approach to shipbuilding is fundamentally different from our traditional methods, but it is not inferior. It is simply industrial. He activated a holographic display showing the interior of the Prometheus facility. Council members watched as robots assembled warships with mechanical precision. Human ships lack the artistic beauty of traditional Council vessels. Vexhai continued. Each one is identical to its neighbors, but they are reliable, functional, and can be produced in quantities that were previously unimaginable. What about quality? Asked Chief Engineer Rothdan of the Technocracy Union. How can mass-produced vessels compare to carefully crafted ships? Admiral Santos smiled. Chief Engineer, would you like to see a demonstration? An hour later, the Boer Council chamber watched through real-time feeds as human and alien vessels conducted joint exercises in Earth orbit. The tests were designed to compare the capabilities of mass-produced human ships against traditional alien craft. The results surprised everyone, including the humans. Human ships were indeed less sophisticated than their alien counterparts. Their weapon systems were simpler. Their hulls were less elegant, and their individual capabilities were inferior to the beautiful vessels created by Council artisans. But human military doctrine didn't rely on individual ship superiority. The humans fight in formations, observed Admiral Kethvar as he watched the exercises. Their ships coordinate like a single organism. The display showed human vessels working together with precision that Council fleets had never achieved. Where alien tactics relied on the skill of individual commanders and the unique capabilities of handcrafted ships, human tactics treated individual vessels as components of a larger machine. They can afford to fight differently, realized Councillor Vrikstal. If they lose ships in battle, they can replace them quickly. We cannot. The demonstration reached its climax when human engineers showed how quickly battle damage could be repaired. Council ships that suffered significant damage typically required months in specialized shipyards for restoration. Human ships used modular components that could be replaced in space within hours. This changes everything, whispered High Councillor Thexara. After the demonstrations, the Council convened in closed session to debate humanity's membership. The discussion lasted for 6 hours and covered topics that had never been relevant to galactic politics before. How do you integrate a species that can outproduce the rest of the galaxy combined? What happens to traditional shipbuilding when mass production becomes available? How do you maintain the balance of power when one species can build fleets faster than others can plan battles? When the Council reconvened in public session, High Councillor Thexara announced their decision. The Galactic Council formally welcomes humanity as a full member species. We also established the following new protocols. Human manufacturing capabilities will be made available to all Council members on equal terms. No single species may contract for more than 20% of human production capacity. Human shipyards will be jointly overseen by Council inspectors to ensure fair distribution of vessels. President Rodriguez stood to respond. The human government accepts these terms and proposes additional cooperation. We offer to share our manufacturing techniques with any species interested in establishing their own industrial shipyards. The offer created another stir in the chamber. Some species were eager to learn human production methods. Others worried about the implications of widespread industrial shipbuilding. Admiral Kethvar requested permission to speak. President Rodriguez, if multiple species adopt human manufacturing techniques, won't that lead to massive fleet buildup throughout the galaxy? President Rodriguez considered the question carefully. Admiral, Earth's history suggests that when everyone has strong defenses, there's less incentive to start wars. But we're willing to work with the Council to develop appropriate safeguards. Dr. Chen added, we've also learned that human and alien technologies complement each other well. Our manufacturing techniques combined with Council design principles could create vessels that are both beautiful and practical. The session continued for hours as details were negotiated, but the fundamental decision had been made. Humanity would join the galactic community not as a minor species learning from their elders, but as a civilization that brought capabilities the galaxy had never seen. 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the first joint human-alien shipyard orbiting Alpha Centauri. Around her, human robots worked alongside alien artisans to create vessels that combined industrial efficiency with traditional craftsmanship. The production rate is impressive, observed her alien counterpart, Master Builder Vextan. But I admit, I'm beginning to appreciate the human approach. When you can build ships quickly, you can experiment with new designs without fear of wasting resources. Chen nodded as they watched a new class of vessel take shape on the assembly line. The ship combined human modular construction with Vorthak aesthetic principles and hegemony weapon systems. It was both beautiful and deadly, a work of art that could be mass-produced. Master Builder, how has the Council adapted to human manufacturing methods? Better than expected. Several species have established their own industrial shipyards using human techniques. The Technocracy Union is particularly enthusiastic. They've begun producing exploration vessels at rates that were previously impossible. And the military implications? Profound. The recent conflict with the Outer Rim Raiders was resolved much more quickly than expected. When the pirates discovered they were facing not 12 council ships but 1,200, they surrendered immediately. Chen smiled. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to make it clear that you're prepared to fight one. They continued their tour, observing the collaboration between species that had never worked together before. Human industrial techniques were spreading throughout the galaxy, but they were being adapted and improved by alien innovation. Ambassador Chen, Master Builder Vexton said as they concluded their visit, "I have a question about human history." "Of course. Your species was isolated for so long because your military filtered out our communications. Do you think that isolation was ultimately beneficial?" Chen considered the question. "Master Builder, if we had joined the Council 2 centuries ago, we would have learned your techniques and traditions. We would have built ships the way you built ships, fought wars the way you fought wars. We might have been better integrated, but we wouldn't have developed our own methods. And now? Now we can offer something new to the galaxy. Our isolation forced us to find different solutions to common problems. Sometimes being left out of the conversation leads to innovations that wouldn't occur otherwise." As they watched the latest vessel roll off the production line, both ambassadors reflected on the changes that had swept through galactic civilization. Humanity had missed every meeting, but their eventual arrival had transformed the very nature of interstellar society. The galaxy had spent centuries perfecting the art of careful, thoughtful development. Humanity had spent those same centuries perfecting the art of rapid practical implementation. Together they were building something neither could have achieved alone. Earth had finally joined the galactic community, and the community would never be the same.
The red sun of Aurea rose slowly over the eastern hills, casting long shadows across the mining compound. Tom wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned on his shovel for a moment of rest. His once strong hands were now covered in calluses and small cuts. 3 years of hard labor had changed him, just as it had changed all the survivors. "Keep moving," growled a harsh voice behind him. "No breaks until the noon bell." Tom turned to see one of the Razor guards standing there, its scaled skin gleaming in the morning light. The alien stood almost 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and a face that reminded Tom of the lizards he had kept as pets back on Earth. But there was nothing pet-like about the Razors. They were conquerors, slavers, and killers. "Sorry," Tom muttered, returning to his work. He knew better than to argue. Last week, a man named Pete had talked back to a guard. They hadn't seen Pete since. The mining compound stretched for miles around him. Once, this had been the proud human colony of New Hope. Now it was just another Razor work camp. 500 people remained from the original 3,000 colonists. The rest had died in the initial attack, or in the harsh years that followed. At the far end of the compound, Anna was sorting minerals on a conveyor belt. Her fingers moved quickly, separating the valuable blue crystals from the worthless rock. The Razors prized these crystals above all else. They powered their ships, their weapons, and their strange machines. Anna looked up briefly, catching Tom's eye across the yard. She gave him a small nod, their secret signal that everything was okay. They had been friends since childhood and had come to Aurea together, full of hope for a new life. Now they just hoped to survive another day. A loud horn signaled the midday break. The workers shuffled toward the food line, keeping their heads down. Meals were the same every day. A gray paste that tasted like nothing but kept them alive. "Marcus wants to meet," Anna whispered as she slid onto the bench beside Tom. "Tonight." "The usual place." Tom nodded slightly. Marcus had been a military officer back on Earth before coming to Aurea to lead the colony's small security team. When the Razors attacked, he had organized what little resistance they could manage. It hadn't been enough, but many people would have died without his quick thinking. Now, Marcus led what remained of their hope, a small resistance group that met in secret, planning for a day when they might be free again. The afternoon work was harder than the morning. The temperature rose to almost unbearable levels, and 2 people collapsed from heat exhaustion. The Razor Guard simply dragged them to the shade and ordered others to take their places. There was no mercy here, only work. When darkness finally fell, Tom made his way carefully through the sleeping quarters. The colonists lived in what had once been storage sheds. 30 people packed into spaces meant for equipment. There was no privacy, no comfort, only exhausted bodies trying to rest before another day of labor. Behind the water recycling unit, a small panel in the wall slid open when Tom knocked 3 times. He crawled through into a narrow maintenance tunnel. "You're late," Marcus said as Tom emerged into a small room. It had once been part of the colony's water system, forgotten when the Razors rebuilt everything to suit their needs. Anna was already there, along with 5 others, the core of their resistance. They sat on upturned buckets and crates in a circle, their faces lit by a single dim light powered by a stolen Razor battery. "They added more guards to the north section," Tom explained. "Had to wait until they changed shifts." Marcus nodded. He was a tall man with a hard face that rarely smiled anymore, but his eyes still burned with the same intensity they had on the first day of the invasion. "We need to talk about the communications tower," Marcus said, pointing to a rough map spread on the floor. "The Razors are bringing in new equipment next week. This might be our only chance." "Chance for what?" asked Bill, an older man who had been the colony's doctor before the invasion. "To get ourselves killed. To contact Earth," Anna said firmly. "I've been studying their tech when they aren't looking. I think I can modify one of their communication arrays to send a message on our old frequencies." "Earth abandoned us," Jane said bitterly. She had lost her husband and 2 children in the first attacks. "They never sent help. Why would they come now?" "We don't know that," Marcus replied. "The Razors destroyed our communication satellites in the first hour. Earth might not even know what happened here." Tom looked around at the tired faces. Even if Earth knows, they might not have the technology to fight the Razors. "We all saw what happened to our ships." The room fell silent as everyone remembered. The colony had only had 3 small ships in orbit when the Razors arrived. They had been destroyed in seconds, burning up in Aurea's atmosphere like shooting stars. "It's been 3 years," Marcus said quietly. "Technology advances quickly in wartime. If Earth knows they have an enemy, they've been preparing." Anna unfolded a small piece of paper with diagrams drawn on it. "I've been working on this plan for months. The Razors change the access codes to their systems every 2 weeks. The next change is in 3 days. There's a small window during the change when I might be able to send a tight beam transmission." "Might?" Bill asked. "It's not without risk," Anna admitted. "If they catch us, they'll kill us. Not just those involved. They'll make an example of many." The room fell silent again. Tom looked at the faces around him, worn by hard work and harder choices. "I'll help," he said finally. "If there's even a small chance Earth can send help, we have to try." One by one, the others nodded. Hope was a dangerous thing in a place like this. But without it, they were already dead. "Then it's settled," Marcus said, rolling up the map. "We have 3 days to prepare. Tom and Anna will handle the communication array. The rest of us will create a distraction." As they left the hidden room one by one, returning to their beds, Tom looked up at the night sky through a small crack in the roof. Somewhere up there was Earth, so far away it was just a memory. Were they still looking for their lost colony? Did they even know Aurea had fallen? 3 years of slavery had nearly broken them. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Tom felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. Hope. 3 days passed quickly. Tom spent his work shifts watching the guard patterns and memorizing the timing of their rounds. Each night, the small resistance group met to refine their plan. The tension grew with every passing hour. "Tomorrow night," Marcus announced during their final meeting, The guards change shifts at midnight, and there's a supply ship landing at the south end of the compound. Most of the razors will be busy with unloading. Anna held up a small device she had built from stolen parts. It was no bigger than her palm. A mess of wires and circuit boards wrapped in cloth to keep it quiet. "This will help me bypass their security," she explained. "But I'll only have a few minutes to send the message before they detect the unauthorized transmission." "What exactly are you going to send?" Jane asked. "We can't just say, 'Help us,' and expect Earth to mount a rescue mission." Anna nodded. "I've prepared a data packet. Our coordinates, information about the razors, their numbers, their technology, and a compressed history of what happened here. It's everything Earth would need to understand what they're facing." The plan was simple, but dangerous. Bill and Jane would create a distraction near the food storage area. Marcus and 2 others would disable the power to the secondary security systems. Tom would help Anna reach the communications tower and stand guard while she sent the message. "Get some sleep," Marcus told them. "Tomorrow, we fight back." But sleep didn't come easily for Tom. He lay on his thin mat, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with all the things that could go wrong. Around him, the soft sounds of breathing and occasional coughs filled the cramped sleeping quarters. These people had become his family over the past 3 years. How many would survive tomorrow? Morning came too soon. The day dragged on with agonizing slowness. Tom went through his usual work routine, shoveling more into carts, but his eyes constantly drifted to the tall communications tower that stood at the center of the compound. Tonight, that tower would either be their salvation or their doom. When evening finally arrived, Tom met Anna behind the water recycling unit. She was pale but determined, the makeshift device hidden under her shirt. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." They waited in silence until the compound lights dimmed for the night cycle. Then, right on schedule, a distant explosion rocked the south end of the compound. Bill and Jane had set off their distraction. "Now," Tom whispered. They moved quickly through the shadows, avoiding the main paths. Razor guards ran past them toward the explosion, their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. So far, the plan was working. The communications tower was surrounded by a fence topped with sharp spikes. But Marcus had done his job. The power indicator on the fence was dark. Tom helped Anna climb over, then followed, tearing his shirt on one of the spikes. "This way," Anna whispered, pointing to a small maintenance door at the base of the tower. Inside, the tower hummed with energy. Blinking lights filled the darkness, and the air smelled of ozone and hot metal. Anna moved confidently through the maze of equipment, her eyes scanning for the main control panel. "There," she said, pointing to a large console. "Keep watch. I need at least 3 minutes." Tom positioned himself near the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Through a small window, he could see razor guards returning from the distraction site. They moved with purpose, which meant they had realized it was a diversion. "Hurry," he urged. Anna worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. She connected her device to the console and began typing commands. "It's fighting me," she muttered. "The security protocols are adapting." Tom watched anxiously as a group of guards approached the tower. "Anna, we're running out of time." "Almost there," she said, sweat beading on her forehead. "The system is accepting my commands, but it keeps trying to lock me out." The guards were less than 50 yards away now. Tom looked around desperately for a weapon, finding only a metal pipe leaning against the wall. "They're coming," he warned, gripping the pipe tightly. "Got it," Anna exclaimed. "Sending now." The message is encoded and compressed. It will look like normal system noise if they detect it. The door burst open. A razor guard stood there, its 4 arms reaching for weapons. Tom swung the pipe with all his strength, catching the alien across its midsection. It stumbled backward but didn't fall. "Run," Tom shouted to Anna. "Is the message sent?" "Not yet." She worked frantically at the console. 10 more seconds. The razor lunged at Tom, its clawed hands gripping his throat. Tom struggled to breathe, spots dancing before his eyes. With a desperate effort, he drove his knee into the alien's body and broke free. "Done," Anna cried. Message sent. More guards were entering the tower now. Tom grabbed Anna's hand and pulled her toward a back exit he had spotted earlier. They burst out into the night air, alarms wailing behind them. They ran blindly through the compound, dodging guards and searchlights. But there were too many. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves facing 3 razor guards with weapons raised. "Stop," one of them commanded in its harsh, clicking language. Tom and Anna froze. There was nowhere to run. The guards marched them to the center of the compound, where other colonists were being gathered. Tom's heart sank when he saw Bill already there, his face bloody and bruised. Of Marcus, there was no sign. The leader of the Razors, a tall alien with red markings on its scales, stood on a platform addressing the assembled humans. "We know some of you have committed acts of sabotage," it said in halting English. "Those responsible will step forward now, or 10 of you will die." No one moved. Tom felt Anna's hand slip into his, squeezing tightly. "Very well," the Razor leader said. It pointed to Bill. "Begin with him." What happened next was something Tom would never forget. The guards dragged Bill forward. He didn't beg or plead. Instead, he stood tall and looked directly at the Razor leader. "Earth will come for us," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "And when they do, you will regret ever setting foot on our world." The Razor leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth does not know you exist anymore. No one is coming to save you." Bill smiled. "We'll see." The guards raised their weapons. Tom closed his eyes, unable to watch. The sound of energy weapons discharging filled the air. That night, 5 colonists died, including Bill. The Razors never discovered that a message had been sent. They found the damaged console but believed it was simple vandalism, part of the distraction. In the days that followed, life in the camp became even harder. Guards were doubled, work hours extended. But among the colonists, a whisper began to spread. The message was sent. No one knew if Earth had received it. No one knew if help would ever come. But for the first time in 3 years, the humans of Aurea allowed themselves to hope. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a small packet of data traveled toward Earth, carrying their desperate plea for help. 6 months passed since they had sent their desperate message into space. The seasons changed on Aurea, bringing heavy rains that turned the work yards into mud pits. Life in the camp continued its harsh routine, but something had changed among the colonists. They worked with their heads a little higher, their eyes watching the skies when the guards weren't looking. Tom had been reassigned to one of the observation posts after the incident, as the Razors called it. The aliens thought it was punishment. The towers were exposed to the elements, and the work was lonely, but Tom actually preferred it. From his post, he could see much of the compound, and more importantly, the sky above. It was during the early morning shift when Tom first noticed something strange. A flicker in the clouds, like heat lightning but with no sound. He watched it for several minutes before it disappeared. Probably just a weather anomaly, he thought. Aurea's atmosphere was known for unusual electrical storms. But the next day, it happened again. And the day after that. When Tom finally got a chance to speak with Anna, he told her about what he had seen. "Could be anything," she said cautiously. They were standing in the food line, keeping their voices low. "But keep watching." Marcus joined them, sliding into line behind Anna. He looked thinner than ever, his face gaunt from the extra work shifts the Razors had assigned him after the escape attempt. "The guards are nervous," he said quietly. "Something's happening. Their commanders have been in meetings all week." Tom felt a flutter of excitement in his chest, but kept his face neutral. "I've seen lights in the sky. 3 days in a row now." Marcus nodded slightly. "Keep it to yourself for now. But watch carefully." 2 more weeks passed. The strange lights appeared daily now, sometimes lasting for hours. The pattern was too regular to be natural. Tom started keeping a mental log, noting the timing and location of each appearance. Then came the day that changed everything. Tom was at his post when a Razor commander climbed up to his observation platform. The alien studied the sky through a strange device, ignoring Tom completely. More atmospheric disturbances, it muttered in its own language, not realizing Tom had learned enough of their speech to understand basic phrases. The commander made some adjustments to the device, then froze. It stared through the viewer again, its scaled skin changing color slightly. A sign of alarm, Tom had learned. The alien spoke urgently into a communication device, then hurried down the ladder. Within minutes, alarms were sounding across the compound. That night, extra guards were posted around the perimeter. Heavy weapons were brought out of storage, and the Razor ships that usually sat idle began running engine tests. "Something's happening," Marcus whispered during the brief moment they passed each other at shift change. "Be ready." 3 days later, the entire sky above Aurea seemed to shimmer with strange light. The Razors were clearly agitated now, their commanders barking orders as troops were redeployed around the compound. Defense systems that had been dormant for years were suddenly active again. Tom watched from his observation post as a massive storm system began to form in the upper atmosphere. It was unlike any weather pattern he had ever seen on Aurea. Too symmetrical, too controlled. The clouds spiraled outward from a central point, forming a perfect circle that expanded to cover much of the visible sky. A Razor officer climbed up to Tom's platform, pushing him aside roughly. "What is that?" it demanded, pointing at the strange formation. Tom feigned ignorance. "Just clouds, sir. A storm coming." The officer studied him with cold reptilian eyes. "If you humans have something to do with this, how could we?" Tom asked, spreading his hands innocently. "We're just miners now." But inside, his heart was racing. Could it be? After all this time. That evening, Anna found him during the meal break. "The Razors are scared," she whispered. "I overheard their technicians talking. They've detected energy signatures they can't identify in the upper atmosphere. Thousands of them." Tom couldn't keep the hope from his voice. "Earth?" Anna's eyes shone. "Who else could it be?" The next morning, the storm had grown even larger. The swirling clouds now covered the entire visible sky, turning day into an eerie twilight. Lightning flashed constantly within the formation, but there was no thunder, no rain, just the silent, pulsing energy. The Razors ordered all humans confined to their quarters. Guards patrolled with weapons ready, watching the sky more than the prisoners. Their fear was almost palpable now. Marcus somehow managed to visit Tom's bunk that night, slipping past the distracted guards. "We need to be ready," he said, his voice barely audible. "If this is what we think it is, there will be a moment to act." "What should we do?" Tom asked. "Spread the word. When it starts, whatever it is, we fight back. Every human in this camp needs to be ready to seize any weapon they can find." Tom nodded. "What about Anna?" "She's already organizing the eastern section. We'll—" Marcus stopped mid-sentence. Outside, a new alarm was sounding, higher pitched, more urgent than anything they had heard before. The entire building shook as if struck by something massive. They rushed to the small window. The storm above had changed. The swirling clouds were now punctuated by thousands of tiny lights, like stars breaking through. But these lights were moving, descending. "They're coming," Marcus whispered, awe in his voice. The Razor guards were running now, abandoning their posts to man the defense systems. Energy weapons powered up across the compound, firing blindly into the storm. But the lights continued to descend, unaffected. Through the window, Tom could see the first of them breaking through the cloud layer. They weren't ships, at least not like any he had seen before. They looked more like raindrops. Thousands of metallic raindrops falling from the sky, each trailing blue fire. Orbital drop pods, Marcus said, his military training helping him recognize what they were seeing. Earth has developed orbital drop technology. As they watched, the first pods struck the ground outside the compound perimeter. They didn't explode on impact as expected. Instead, they opened like flowers, and from each one emerged a figure in sleek armor. Human soldiers. They came, Tom said, his voice cracking. They actually came. Marcus gripped his shoulder, and they came like a storm. Outside, the night was suddenly bright with weapons fire as Earth's forces engaged the Razor defenses. The storm above continued to deliver its payload of soldiers, a relentless rain of humanity descending on the unsuspecting aliens. Now, Marcus said, turning to the other colonists who had gathered at the windows. Now we fight back. Chaos erupted throughout the compound. The Razors were running in all directions, their usual discipline shattered by the surprise attack. Energy weapons fired into the sky, creating strange patterns of light against the storm clouds, but for every drop pod they managed to hit, 20 more broke through. We need weapons, Marcus told the gathered colonists. There were about 40 of them in the barracks, men and women who had endured years of slavery. Their faces showed a mix of fear and hope. The guard station at the end of this building should have what we need. Tom moved to the door and peeked out. 2 guards, both distracted by what's happening outside. Marcus nodded. That's our first target. Ready? The colonists had no real weapons, just tools and makeshift clubs they had hidden over the years. But they had numbers, and for the first time, they had hope. They burst from the barracks like a flood, overwhelming the surprised guards before they could even raise their weapons. Tom grabbed one of the fallen energy rifles and passed it to Marcus, who knew how to use it. Others took whatever weapons they could find. Move toward the east gate, Marcus ordered. That's where most of the human forces are landing. We need to link up with them. Outside, the sky was alive with light. The storm continued to drop human soldiers across the entire area. Each pod landed with precision, avoiding the colony buildings where humans were held. The Earth forces clearly knew exactly where their people were being kept. Tom helped an older man named Joe as they moved through the compound. All around them, the battle rage. Razor soldiers were falling back, overwhelmed by the constant rain of human troops. Look! Joe pointed upward, his voice filled with awe. Through a break in the clouds, they could see massive ships hovering in the upper atmosphere. They were unlike anything Tom had ever seen. Sleek, dark vessels that seemed to bend the light around them. Earth has been busy, Marcus said, also looking up. Those are warships. Big ones. As they watched, smaller craft detached from the larger vessels and began descending through the storm. These weren't drop pods but actual attack ships, moving with impossible speed and agility. Find cover, Marcus shouted as one of the ships swooped low over the compound. But the ship wasn't targeting them. It fired a precise beam of blue energy that struck the main Razor defense tower, vaporizing it instantly. Other ships followed, systematically destroying the Razor defenses while carefully avoiding areas where humans might be. They know exactly what they're doing, Anna said, appearing beside Tom. She had a group of colonists with her from the eastern barracks. They must have analyzed the data I sent. The colonists continued moving toward the east gate, gathering more of their people as they went. What had started as 40 was now over 100, a ragged army armed with stolen weapons and burning determination. When they reached the gate, they found it already under attack by Earth forces. Soldiers in sleek gray armor were engaged with the remaining Razor guards. Their movements were almost too fast to follow, enhanced by technology the colonists had never seen before. One of the soldiers spotted the approaching colonists and signaled to the others. A path opened up in their formation, allowing the colonists to pass through. "Get behind us," the soldier called out, her voice slightly mechanical through her helmet. "We'll handle this." But Marcus stepped forward. "We can fight. These monsters have held us captive for 3 years. We want our share of the battle." The soldier studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Follow our lead then. We're pushing toward the Central Command Building. The combined force of soldiers and colonists swept through the eastern section of the compound. The Razors put up fierce resistance, but they were outmatched by Earth's new technology. The human soldiers moved like lightning, their weapons cutting through Razor defenses as if they were paper. Tom found himself fighting alongside a soldier who couldn't have been more than 20 years old. The young man moved with confidence, his armor seeming to anticipate the Razor's attacks. "How did you find us?" Tom asked during a brief lull in the fighting. "Your message," the soldier replied. "It reached Earth about 5 months ago. We were already preparing for something like this. There had been rumors of colonies going silent. But your data gave us everything we needed. Their numbers, their technology, their weaknesses." A Razor soldier appeared from behind a building. Before Tom could even raise his weapon, the Earth soldier had fired, dropping the alien with a precise shot. "You're using their weather against them," Tom observed, looking up at the continuing storm. The soldier nodded. "The Razors can't track anything through heavy atmospheric disturbance. Their sensors get confused by electrical activity. So we created the biggest storm this planet has ever seen. You can control weather. One of many things Earth developed after we realized we weren't alone in the universe." The soldier gestured for Tom to follow as they moved toward the next position. The battle continued to rage across the compound. From his position, Tom could see that the human forces had the upper hand. The Razors were being pushed back to their central headquarters, a massive structure that dominated the center of the compound. Marcus found Tom during the advance. "The Earth commander wants us to gather all the colonists in the old assembly area. They're going to secure it as a safe zone." "I want to keep fighting," Tom insisted. "We all do," Marcus replied, putting a hand on his shoulder. "But we need to organize. Some of our people are injured, and the children need protection." Tom had almost forgotten about the children. There weren't many. The Razors had separated families when they took over, but about 20 kids had survived the occupation, kept in a separate area, and forced to sort minerals. "Anne is already leading a team to get them," Marcus added, seeing the question in Tom's eyes. As they helped gather the colonists, Tom watched the Earth forces continue their assault on the Razor headquarters. The alien commander had barricaded himself inside with his elite guards, but it wouldn't last long. The human ships had surrounded the building, cutting off any escape. One of the Earth commanders approached the gathering colonists. He removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face with kind eyes. "I'm General Reed," he said. "On behalf of Earth Alliance, I want you to know that you're safe now. The Razors are beaten. Their ships in orbit have been destroyed or captured." A cheer went up from the colonists, 3 years of pain and fear releasing in a single moment of joy. "How?" asked an old woman near Tom. "How did Earth become so powerful? The Razors destroy our ships like they were nothing." General Reed's expression grew serious. "After we lost contact with the outer colonies, Earth united like never before. Every nation, every resource focused on one goal, developing the technology to find you and bring you home. What you're seeing today is the result of 3 years of single-minded determination." Tom looked around at the Earth forces still securing the compound. Their technology seemed almost magical compared to what he remembered from Earth. "We never stopped looking for you," the general continued, "and we never will stop looking for any human colony that goes silent. That's a promise Earth has made." As night fell on Aurea, the storm clouds finally began to clear, revealing the stars above and the massive Earth fleet in orbit. The storm that had brought humanity's vengeance was passing, but its work was done. The Razors had been defeated. The colony was free. The morning after the battle brought the first true sunrise the colonists had seen in years. The artificial storm had cleared completely, leaving the sky a brilliant blue. Throughout the night, more Earth ships had arrived, bringing medical teams, supplies, and reunions that many had thought impossible. Tom stood on a small hill overlooking what had once been the mining compound. Earth engineers were already dismantling the Razor structures, erasing the painful reminders of captivity. Medical tents had been set up in the old assembly area, where doctors treated the wounds and illnesses that the colonists had endured for so long. "It's hard to believe," Anna said, joining him on the hillside. She looked different today, standing straighter, her face relaxed for the first time in years. "Just yesterday we were slaves. Today we're free." Tom nodded, unable to find words for the emotions swirling inside him. Joy, relief, and a strange sense of loss. For 3 years, survival had been his only goal. Now what? A shuttle landed nearby, its engines barely making a sound. General Reed emerged, accompanied by several officers and a civilian woman whose clothing marked her as someone important. "That's the Earth Alliance president," Marcus said, approaching Tom and Anna. He had received medical treatment for his injuries, a clean bandage wrapped around his arm. "They say she led the effort to find us." The three of them watched as the president spoke with groups of colonists, her manner warm and concerned. Eventually, she made her way up the hill toward them. "These are the ones I told you about," General Reed said as they approached. "They led the resistance here. Without their signal, we might never have found Aurea." The president stepped forward, her eyes moving from face to face. "On behalf of all humanity, I thank you for your courage. Your message changed everything for us." "We didn't know if anyone would hear it," Anna admitted. "Not only did we hear it," the president replied, "it confirmed what we had feared, that the Razors were systematically attacking human colonies. Your data about their technology was invaluable." She gestured toward the fleet visible in the sky above. "Everything you see here was developed specifically to counter the Razor threat. The weather manipulation technology, the enhanced soldiers, the stealth ships, all created after we analyzed your message." Tom looked up at the massive vessels with new understanding. "You built all this in just 6 months." The president's expression grew serious. "Earth has changed since you left, Tom. When the first colonies went silent 3 years ago, we didn't know what was happening. But as more disappeared, we realized we were under attack. Every nation, every resource was directed toward defense and finding our lost people." A group of soldiers approached, escorting a Razor commander in restraints. Its once proud bearing was gone, replaced by defeat. The alien looked small somehow, its fearsome appearance diminished by capture. "This one wishes to speak with you," one of the soldiers told the president. "It claims to be their fleet commander." The president nodded, and the soldiers brought the Razor forward. "You have defeated us here," the alien said in its clicking language, now translated by a small device one of the officers held. "But you have not seen the full might of our empire. There will be consequences for this attack." The president's face remained calm. "Your forces attacked peaceful colonies without provocation. You enslaved our people and killed thousands. The consequences are yours to bear, not ours." She stepped closer to the alien, unafraid. "Your main fleet has already been engaged by our forces near the system you call Nexus 7. The battle ended 2 hours ago. Your people surrendered." The Razor commander's scales changed color rapidly. A sign of shock, Tom had learned. "Impossible," it hissed. "The Nexus fleet had 50 warships." "We had more," the president said simply. "And we had something your people have never understood. A determination to find our family, no matter the cost." As the soldiers led the stunned commander away, Tom felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. It was truly over, not just for Aurea, but for all the colonies. Throughout the day, more shuttles arrived, bringing supplies and taking the most injured colonists to the medical ships in orbit. Tom helped where he could, assisting the Earth teams as they set up temporary housing. In the afternoon, a young officer found him distributing food supplies. "Tom Baker?" she asked. Tom nodded, wondering what she wanted. "There's someone who'd like to speak with you." She handed him a communication device, a private channel from one of the ships in orbit. Curious, Tom accepted the device. "Hello." The screen flickered, and a face appeared, older with more gray in his beard, but unmistakable. "Dad," Tom whispered, his voice catching. "Tom, thank God." His father's eyes were wet with tears. "When we got word that Array had been found, I called in every favor I had to get assigned to the rescue fleet. You're here, in orbit. My ship arrives in 2 hours. I've been working with the Alliance Navy since the colonies started going silent. Half the engineers on these new vessels are former colonists or family members." Tom couldn't hold back his own tears now. He had assumed his family would have moved on, believing him dead after so many years of silence. "We never gave up, son," his father said, seeming to read his thoughts. "None of us did. That's what the Razors never understood about humans. We don't abandon our own." As evening fell, the colonists gathered in what had once been the central plaza of their colony. The Razor buildings had been removed, leaving an open space where Earth forces had set up lights and a simple stage. The president addressed them all, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Today marks not just your liberation, but a new chapter for humanity," she said. "The knowledge we gained in finding you has pushed Earth forward by decades. The unity we found in searching for you has healed old divisions. In trying to destroy us, the Razors have only made us stronger." She gestured to the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible alongside the Earth ships. "These stars were once places of fear for us, realms of unknown dangers. Now they are highways back to our lost families. What was taken from you, your freedom, your dignity, your years, can never be fully restored. But I promise you this, humanity will never again be caught unprepared. We will never again lose our people in the darkness." A cheer rose from the gathered colonists, echoing across the hills of Aurea. Later, as night fully descended, Tom found himself standing with Anna and Marcus at the same spot where they had planned their desperate message 6 months ago. "What will you do now?" Anna asked them both. Marcus looked up at the stars. "They've offered me a position with the Alliance forces. They need people who know the Razors firsthand." "And you?" Tom asked Anna. She smiled. "Earth's Science Division wants me to help them understand the Razor technology I'd worked with. Apparently, my little communication device was quite impressive." They both looked at Tom expectantly. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "Maybe help rebuild the colony, or maybe explore what Earth has become." He looked up at the massive ships above them, symbols of how far humanity had advanced in 3 short years. "Everything's changed." "Not everything," Marcus said, putting his hand on Tom's shoulder. "We're still who we always were, just a little stronger now." As they stood together under the stars, a bright light streaked across the sky. Not a weapon or a drop pod, but a simple shooting star. To Tom, it seemed like a final punctuation mark on their long ordeal. The storm had passed, but the strength it had revealed in humanity would remain. A force as powerful as any weapon, as enduring as the stars themselves.